In the 1970s, millions of Americans threw away their egg yolks, replaced butter with margarine, stopped drinking whole milk, and switched to dry, skinless chicken breast. Many truly believed they were protecting their hearts. But what if I told you some of that advice was incomplete? Not malicious, not evil, but incomplete. Because today, decades later, researchers are quietly re-examining many of those same foods, and the results are surprising. Eggs are no longer universally condemned. Coffee is now being studied for potential brain support. Certain natural fats once feared are considered essential for hormone and nerve function. Even moderate red meat is being discussed with more nuance than it was 30 years ago. So how did we go from "this food will kill you" to "this food may actually help you"? And more importantly, if you're over 60 right now, how much of that old fear are you still carrying into your daily meals? Before we continue, I'd love to know something. How old are you and where are you watching from? Are you in your 60s, 70s, or 80s? Are you watching from Texas, Florida, California, or New York? Let me know in the comments. I read them and it helps me understand who this community truly is, because this conversation matters more than ever after 60. Your body changes in ways that nutrition directly affects. Muscle mass naturally declines, memory becomes more vulnerable, inflammation increases quietly in the background, and energy recovery slows down. At this stage of life, food is no longer just calories, it becomes information. It signals your body whether to preserve strength or slowly lose it. Now, imagine two 75-year-olds. One struggles with balance, fatigue, and forgetfulness. The other walks confidently, cooks independently, remembers names, and still drives without hesitation. Genetics matter, lifestyle matters, but nutrition plays a role many people underestimate. When researchers studied dietary patterns of long-living adults, people who remained independent into their late 80s and 90s, 7 simple foods kept appearing again and again. Not superfoods from a laboratory, not expensive powders, 7 ordinary foods that many Americans were once told to limit or avoid. Today, we're going to break them down one by one. No hype, no extreme claims, just clarity. Because if even part of the old story was incomplete, you deserve to hear what the updated story says today. Let's begin with the one that was once blamed for heart attacks and sleepless nights. Coffee. For decades, coffee carried a reputation that made many seniors uneasy. It was blamed for raising blood pressure, triggering heart problems, and overstimulating the nervous system. Some people were told to quit it entirely after a certain age. For years, the safest advice seemed to be, avoid it. But modern research has complicated that story. Today, coffee is one of the most studied beverages in the world, and large observational studies have found something unexpected. Moderate coffee consumption is often associated with a lower risk of cognitive decline, a lower risk of certain neurodegenerative conditions, and even reduced overall mortality in some populations. That doesn't mean coffee is a miracle drink, but it does mean the conversation is no longer one-sided. So, what changed? Coffee contains hundreds of bioactive compounds. Most people focus only on caffeine, but caffeine is just one piece of the puzzle. Coffee is rich in antioxidants, compounds that help combat oxidative stress in the body. Oxidative stress increases as we age and is linked to cellular damage over time. Antioxidants help neutralize that process. In fact, in many Western diets, coffee is one of the largest sources of antioxidants consumed daily. For seniors, one of the most interesting areas of research involves brain health. Moderate caffeine intake has been linked in several studies to improved alertness, reaction time, and short-term focus. Some research suggests regular coffee drinkers may have a lower risk of developing cognitive impairment compared to non-drinkers. Scientists believe this may be related not only to caffeine but also to anti-inflammatory compounds found naturally in coffee beans. There is also evidence that moderate coffee intake may support metabolic health. Some studies have associated it with improved insulin sensitivity and a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. Since blood sugar regulation becomes more important with age, this area is particularly relevant for older adults. However, and this is important, moderation is everything. Most benefits appear in people consuming about 1 to 3 cups per day. Excessive coffee intake can increase heart rate, disrupt sleep, and aggravate anxiety in sensitive individuals. And sleep, especially after 60, is one of the strongest protectors of brain health. So drinking coffee late in the afternoon may undo some of the very benefits you're trying to gain. Preparation also matters. Black coffee or coffee with minimal added sugar is very different from highly sweetened beverages loaded with syrups and creamers. Added sugar increases inflammation and contributes to metabolic stress, the exact opposite of what we want in later life. Another factor is individual response. Some seniors metabolize caffeine more slowly, meaning it stays in their system longer. If coffee makes you jittery, disrupts your sleep, or raises your blood pressure significantly, it may not be right for you. And that's okay. Longevity is not about forcing trends, it's about understanding your own body. But for many healthy older adults, moderate coffee consumption is no longer considered the enemy it once was. In fact, in reasonable amounts, it may be part of a supportive lifestyle pattern that promotes alertness, circulation, and even long-term resilience. The fear surrounding coffee decades ago was based on limited early data. As research evolved, the picture became more balanced. Not harmful in moderation, potentially beneficial, context matters. And that leads us to the next food, one that was once dismissed as just sugar but is now considered one of the most powerful natural sources of protective compounds available: berries. If there is one food that consistently appears in longevity research across different countries, different cultures, and different diets, it's berries. For years, many people underestimated them. They were seen as a garnish, a dessert topping, something sweet and optional. But science has slowly revealed something much more powerful. Berries are among the most concentrated natural sources of polyphenols, plant compounds that act as powerful antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents inside the body. And after 60, inflammation becomes one of the quiet drivers of aging. Not the kind of inflammation you feel when you sprain your ankle, the silent, low-grade inflammation that slowly affects blood vessels, joints, and even brain tissue over time. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries contain compounds called anthocyanins, the pigments that give them their deep red, purple, and blue colors. These compounds have been studied for their potential role in supporting memory, circulation, and cellular resilience. In fact, several long-term observational studies have suggested that higher berry intake is associated with slower rates of cognitive decline in older adults. Some researchers believe these compounds may help improve communication between brain cells by supporting blood flow and reducing oxidative stress. Think about that for a moment. Better blood flow to the brain, reduced cellular damage, support for memory pathways. And it comes in the form of a handful of fruit. But here's what makes berries especially powerful for seniors. Unlike many fruits that spike blood sugar quickly, berries are relatively low on the glycemic index. They contain fiber, which slows the absorption of natural sugars. That means THPY provides sweetness without the sharp blood sugar surge that can leave you feeling tired later. Blood sugar stability becomes increasingly important with age. Fluctuations in glucose levels are linked not only to diabetes risk, but also to cognitive performance and energy consistency. Berries also support vascular health. Healthy blood vessels are critical for both heart function and brain function. The brain depends heavily on steady circulation. When circulation declines, memory and clarity often follow. And there's another interesting pattern researchers have observed in long-living populations. Berries are often eaten consistently, not occasionally. A small serving daily seems to be more beneficial than a large serving once in a while. Now, let's talk practicality. Fresh berries are excellent, but frozen berries are just as nutritious, sometimes even more so, because they are frozen at peak ripeness. For seniors on a budget, frozen options are often more affordable and accessible year-round. A simple half cup added to breakfast, whether alongside yogurt, oatmeal, or even on their own, may provide meaningful phytonutrients without adding excess calories. Of course, portion size still matters. Even natural sugar should be balanced within your overall dietary pattern, and anyone managing diabetes should monitor blood sugar response carefully. But for most older adults, berries are no longer viewed as just fruit. They are viewed as protective food, colorful food, functional food. When you look at plates of individuals who live long, active lives, you often see color: deep blue, rich red, vibrant purple. The medicine, as some old traditions used to say, is in the color. And that brings us to the next food, one that comes not from the land but from the water. A food that has been central to many of the world's longest-living coastal populations: fatty fish. If berries represent protection from the land, fatty fish represent protection from the sea. When scientists began studying some of the longest-living populations in the world, particularly coastal communities, one dietary pattern kept appearing again and again: regular consumption of oily fish. Not fried, fast food fish, not heavily processed fish sticks, but salmon, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, herring, the kind of fish rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Now, here's why this matters so much after 60. Your brain is nearly 60% fat by dry weight, and a significant portion of that fat is made up of DHA, one of the primary omega-3 fatty acids found in oily fish. DHA is a structural component of brain cells. It helps maintain the flexibility and integrity of cell membranes, which directly influences how brain cells communicate. As we age, levels of DHA in the brain can decline. Reduced omega-3 intake has been associated in some studies with an increased risk of cognitive decline, depression, and reduced processing speed. EPA, another omega-3 found in fatty fish, plays a slightly different role. It is strongly linked to inflammation regulation. Chronic inflammation contributes to cardiovascular disease, joint stiffness, and even neurodegenerative processes. So, when researchers talk about fatty fish supporting heart and brain health, this is what they're referring to. structural support for brain cells, and modulation of inflammatory pathways. Large population studies have shown that individuals who eat fatty fish 1 to 3 times per week often have lower rates of cardiovascular disease compared to those who rarely consume it. Some research also suggests improved mood stability and a reduced risk of depressive symptoms in older adults with adequate omega-3 intake. And here's something important for seniors. Omega-3 fats may help support blood vessel flexibility. Flexible arteries allow smoother blood flow. Smooth blood flow supports oxygen delivery, especially to the brain and muscles. When circulation is efficient, you feel clearer, steadier, and often more energized. Now, let's address the common concern: mercury. Yes, certain large predatory fish can accumulate higher mercury levels. That's why moderation and smart selection matter. Smaller fish like sardines and anchovies generally contain lower mercury levels while still providing high omega-3 content. Salmon is also widely considered a balanced choice. This is not about eating fish every day in massive quantities. Most research suggests benefits appear with about 2 servings per week. Preparation matters too. Grilled, baked, or lightly pan-seared in olive oil. Deep frying adds oxidized fats and excess calories that can counteract benefits. For those who dislike fish entirely, omega-3 supplements are sometimes considered, but whole food sources provide additional nutrients beyond just the isolated fat. Fish also contains high-quality protein, vitamin D, selenium, and B vitamins, all important in later life. Protein itself becomes more critical after 60. Muscle mass naturally declines in a process called sarcopenia. Adequate protein intake helps preserve strength, balance, and independence. Fatty fish provides both healthy fats and high-quality protein in one package. Think about the connection here. Berries help reduce oxidative stress. Coffee may support alertness and circulation. Fatty fish provide structural support for the brain and anti-inflammatory balance. We're building layers of protection, and now we move to one of the most controversial foods of the last half-century. A food that was blamed for clogged arteries, feared for its cholesterol content, and quietly removed from millions of breakfast plates: eggs. For decades, seniors were told to avoid them, especially the yolk. The concern centered around cholesterol. One large egg contains about 180-200 milligrams of dietary cholesterol, and for many years, it was assumed that eating cholesterol directly raised blood cholesterol in a straight line. So people removed the yolks, ordered egg white omelets, and believed they were protecting their hearts. But over time, nutrition science became more nuanced. Researchers discovered something important. For most people, dietary cholesterol does not affect blood cholesterol as dramatically as once believed. The body tightly regulates cholesterol production. When you eat more cholesterol, your liver often produces less. For the majority of healthy individuals, moderate egg consumption does not significantly increase cardiovascular risk. Now, there are exceptions. Individuals with specific metabolic conditions or certain genetic profiles may respond differently. That's why personalized medical advice still matters. But the blanket fear surrounding eggs has softened considerably in modern research, and here's why eggs are especially relevant for seniors. First, protein quality. Eggs contain what is considered one of the highest quality proteins available. They provide all 9 essential amino acids in proportions the body can efficiently use. After age 60, muscle preservation becomes critical. Loss of muscle mass affects balance, mobility, fall risk, and overall independence. Many seniors unknowingly underconsume protein, especially at breakfast. An egg provides about 6 grams of highly bioavailable protein. 2 eggs can contribute meaningfully toward daily protein targets, particularly when combined with other protein sources throughout the day. Second, choline. Choline is a nutrient many people rarely hear about, but it plays a vital role in brain health. It is required for the production of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter involved in memory and muscle control. It also supports cell membrane integrity and liver function. The egg yolk is one of the richest natural sources of choline. And here's something interesting. Many older adults do not meet recommended choline intake levels. Removing yolks removes one of the most concentrated sources available in the typical American diet. Third, eye health. Egg yolks contain lutein and zeaxanthin, carotenoids that accumulate in the retina. These compounds help filter harmful blue light and support macular health. Age-related macular degeneration is one of the leading causes of vision decline in older adults. While no single food prevents it entirely, nutrients like lutein play a protective role. Fourth, vitamin B12. B12 absorption declines with age due to changes in stomach acid production, yet B12 remains essential for nerve function, red blood cell formation, and cognitive clarity. Eggs contain B12 in a form that contributes to daily intake. And there's more. Eggs provide vitamin D, selenium, riboflavin, and healthy fats, all within a relatively low-calorie package. For seniors who struggle with reduced appetite, nutrient density becomes extremely important. Every bite needs to count. Now, let's talk about preparation. The cooking method influences health impact. Boiled, poached, or lightly scrambled eggs prepared with minimal added processed fats preserve nutrient integrity. Cooking at extremely high temperatures for prolonged periods can oxidize cholesterol, which is something we want to minimize. Gentle cooking is preferable. Portion size matters as well. Most modern guidelines suggest that for healthy individuals, 1 egg per day, and sometimes more, can fit into a balanced dietary pattern. But balance across the entire day remains important. It's also critical to look at context. Eggs eaten alongside refined white bread and processed meats create a very different metabolic environment than eggs eaten with vegetables and whole foods. Eggs themselves are not the problem, the dietary pattern surrounding them often is. Now, consider the bigger picture. After 60, seniors face 3 major nutritional priorities: preserve muscle, protect brain function, and maintain visual and nerve health. Eggs directly support all 3, and yet for decades, fear pushed them off the plate. Nutrition science evolves, and eggs are one of the clearest examples of how simplification sometimes led to unintended avoidance of highly nutrient-dense food. But now we move to the most debated food on this entire list. A food praised for strength, criticized for heart risk, feared by some, and defended by others: red meat. And this is where nuance becomes extremely important. Red meat has been one of the most controversial foods in modern nutrition. For years, it was blamed for heart disease, inflammation, and chronic illness. Headlines were blunt, diets encouraged strict limitation, and many seniors were advised to favor chicken and fish instead. But as with many nutrition topics, the truth is more nuanced. Red meat is not a single category. It includes beef, lamb, and pork, foods that provide highly bioavailable nutrients. Bioavailable is a key term. It means nutrients that the body can actually absorb and use efficiently. For example, red meat is one of the richest sources of heme iron. Iron is essential for oxygen transport in the blood. It helps red blood cells deliver oxygen to tissues. Adequate oxygen delivery supports energy and cognitive function. After 60, iron deficiency can contribute to fatigue and weakness, problems that directly affect independence. Heme iron from animal sources is absorbed more efficiently than non-heme iron from plant sources. That doesn't mean plant iron is unimportant. It is, but the body handles these forms differently. Red meat also provides vitamin B12. B12 absorption becomes more challenging with age. Low B12 levels can contribute to memory problems, nerve issues, and anemia. Because B12 is primarily found in animal products, older adults who consume little or no animal food sometimes require supplementation. Additionally, red meat contains high-quality protein. As we discussed earlier, protein becomes critical after 60 to preserve muscle mass. Sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, affects strength and mobility. Adequate protein intake helps counteract this process. Red meat is one of the most concentrated protein sources available. So why the controversy? One reason involves preparation and processing. Processed red meats, such as bacon, sausages, and deli meats, often contain preservatives and higher levels of sodium. Some studies have associated high intake of processed meats with increased health risks. However, it is important to distinguish between processed products and whole cuts of red meat. A steak is different from a highly processed hot dog. Preparation also matters. Charring meat at extremely high temperatures can create compounds that researchers study for potential health implications. This does not mean grilling is forbidden. It means moderation and mindful cooking techniques, such as avoiding excessive burning, are wise practices. Now, let's address heart health. Decades ago, red meat was linked to cholesterol concerns. Modern research has refined this understanding. Dietary patterns matter more than single foods. A diet dominated by processed foods, refined sugars, and low fiber carries far greater cardiovascular risk than occasional servings of lean red meat within an otherwise balanced diet. Context is everything. If someone eats red meat daily in large portions, especially alongside minimal vegetables and excessive saturated fat, health outcomes may differ from someone who eats red meat occasionally as part of a varied diet rich in plants, fiber, and healthy fats. This is where moderation becomes the guiding principle. For seniors, red meat can be a valuable source of nutrients, but portion size and frequency matter. A small to moderate serving a few times per week can provide benefits without dominating the dietary pattern. Quality also matters. Grass-fed and lean cuts often contain different fat profiles compared to heavily processed or high-fat options. Lean cuts provide protein and nutrients with lower saturated fat content. Saturated fat itself is not inherently evil, but excessive intake in the context of an overall poor diet can contribute to health problems. The modern scientific perspective is balanced. Red meat is nutrient-rich. It can support protein and iron intake. Preparation and moderation matter. Dietary patterns matter more than isolated foods. Now, let's consider seniors specifically. Older adults often face challenges such as reduced appetite and difficulty meeting nutrient needs. Nutrient-dense foods become valuable tools. Red meat, when consumed responsibly, can contribute to meeting those needs. But it is not mandatory. Health can be supported through multiple dietary patterns. Some seniors thrive on diets emphasizing fish and plant proteins, others include small amounts of red meat. Individual needs vary. The goal is not strict rules, the goal is informed choices. And that brings us to the next food, one that many older generations grew up eating regularly, often in homemade kitchens and traditional recipes: fermented foods. For generations, long before modern probiotics became a marketing term, families made and consumed foods that were naturally fermented. Sauerkraut, pickles, yogurt, kefir, buttermilk. These foods contain live beneficial bacteria. Your gut is home to a complex ecosystem of microorganisms, often called the microbiome. Research increasingly suggests that gut health influences digestion, immune function, and even aspects of mental well-being. For seniors, this connection matters. As we age, digestive efficiency can decline. Stomach acid production may decrease, and nutrient absorption can become less effective. At the same time, the immune system relies partly on gut function. Fermented foods introduce beneficial bacteria that may help support microbial diversity. Diversity in the microbiome is associated, in some studies, with improved digestive balance. Now, this does not mean fermented foods cure diseases or replace medical treatment. It means they can be part of a supportive dietary pattern, and they are often simple: a small serving of sauerkraut with dinner, a cup of yogurt with breakfast, a fermented pickle as a side. These foods are not complicated, they are traditional, and they align with the broader theme we have explored throughout this video: nutrient density and digestive support. Gut health also connects to inflammation. The gut is involved in immune signaling. A balanced microbiome may contribute to reduced inflammatory responses in some individuals. Again, nuance matters. Not everyone tolerates fermented foods equally. Some people experience digestive discomfort. Portion size and individual tolerance are key. If fermented foods do not agree with you, they are not mandatory. Health is personalized. Now, let's move to the final food on the original list: raw cacao. Not chocolate candy, not sugary milk chocolate bars, raw cacao powder, the minimally processed form of cocoa. Cacao contains compounds called flavonoids. These are plant-based molecules studied for their antioxidant properties. Antioxidants help combat oxidative stress, a process linked to cellular aging. Oxidative stress occurs when free radicals accumulate faster than the body can neutralize them. Free radicals are byproducts of normal metabolism and environmental exposure. Over time, excessive oxidative stress may contribute to cellular damage. Flavonoids in cacao are among the compounds researchers study for potential vascular and circulatory benefits. Improved circulation supports oxygen delivery. Oxygen delivery supports tissue function. For seniors, circulation matters. Blood vessels become less flexible with age. Supporting vascular health is part of maintaining overall vitality. Raw cacao is also a source of minerals such as magnesium. Magnesium plays roles in muscle function and energy metabolism. However, context again matters. Raw cacao itself is bitter. It is not the sweet chocolate many people associate with desserts. Sweetened chocolate products often contain added sugars and fats that change the nutritional profile. If cacao is included, it is typically in small amounts. Some people add a spoon of raw cacao powder to coffee or smoothies, others do not include it at all. It is optional, not essential. The broader lesson is consistency. Longevity research repeatedly highlights dietary patterns rather than singular miracle foods. Coffee in moderation, colorful fruits, healthy fats, quality protein, nutrient-dense choices, balanced lifestyles. No single food guarantees long life. But nutrition influences quality of life, energy independence, cognitive clarity, and muscle preservation. These outcomes matter deeply to seniors. And that brings us to the final message from our 108-year-old example. Food is important, but it is not everything. The food you eat is fuel. Your mindset and purpose are the engine. People who live long, fulfilling lives often share another trait. They remain engaged with life. They maintain relationships. They find reasons to wake up. They laugh, they adapt, and they continue learning. Health is not only physical, it is holistic. So here is the takeaway. Do not live in fear of food. Do not chase extremes. Do not believe in magical solutions. Focus on balance, protein for strength, colorful foods for nutrients, healthy fats for cellular support, and moderation for sustainability. And if you are a senior watching this, your choices still matter. It is never too late to improve dietary patterns. It is never too late to prioritize nutrition. Small changes accumulate over time. One additional serving of vegetables, one glass of water, one healthier breakfast. Progress does not require perfection, and that is the message of longevity research: consistency, wisdom, and purposeful living.